Hello, everybody, and welcome to Findmypast from home. It's Friday, and that means new records, and that is always the best day of the week. So we're really excited to have you with us. Just leave your comments and let us know where you're watching from and what you've been up to and how things are going in your world. We're always so happy to talk to all of you. For those who are new to the community or joining us for maybe the first or second time, my name is Jen Baldwin. I'm the Data Acquisition Manager for North America for Findmypast, and I also do a handful of other things for the company. Ellie is with us in the comments, so let us know who you are and where you are. We, of course, always love to touch base with everybody. So William, hello. Always good to have you with us. We've got John from Canada. Jamie, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. I apologize if I didn't, from Santa Barbara. And it's her very first live Findmypast Friday. So welcome. That's very exciting. I'm glad you chose this week because we have some great stuff to share today. Matthew is with us. Let's see. Who else? Ruth from the UK. Patricia is with us. Jane in Kearney, New Jersey. Michelle is in West Sussex. Ruth is with us. Heather's from Edinburgh. Paula's in Boston. Oh, Melbourne, Australia. Maura, thank you so much for being with us. It is not a great time of the day for you. Debbie in York. Beverly in Leighton Buzzard. I thought it said Blizzard, Beverly, and I was like, what? A blizzard? Like, no, that can't be right. Kathy's in St. Albans. Let's see. Oh, Susan's in Thunder Bay, Ontario, Canada. I know where that is, Susan. That's exciting. I have friends in Thunder Bay. Let's see. William said something. I want to just scroll back to... Found my granddad's brother's records on your new military upload today. Super cloudy but warm in Cumbria. William, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's really exciting. Always good to hear. Ellie said that she already had some ice cream. Little jealous. It's 9 o'clock in the morning my time, but I'm thinking it's Friday and ice cream sounds okay for breakfast, so that's all right. Oh, I pronounced your name perfectly. That's good. Thank you. that's pretty rare for me. But I'm trying. All right, let's see. Oh, Laura's in Seattle, my old stomping grounds. So that's always nice to hear. Okay, look, it's great. It's a fabulous Friday. Just to add to the weather report today, it's supposed to get to about 54 degrees Fahrenheit where I'm at, but that's roughly 12 Celsius. I looked it up ahead of time this time, you guys. Had all my data ready for you. So we had snow at the beginning of the week, and by Sunday it's supposed to be really nice, like 70 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're really looking forward to a beautiful weekend. Rita's in Kentucky. That's so great. Bev is in London, Canada. It's sunny there. Gail's in Montana. That's fantastic. I love Montana. Beautiful area. Okay, we've got a lot of people from all over the world, and that's always really exciting. So thank you all very much for being with us today. We really appreciate it. You're all superstars. So today we have a busy schedule. We have a lot to talk about, and I hope you're excited. I'm looking forward to this conversation. We, of course, are going to do our record update for the week, our new records, but the question of the week, which pretty sure I forgot to put in advance. Question of the week is, have you written the story of your military ancestors? Now, I know a lot of us have done and spent a lot of time writing our research out, but have we actually taken the time to document the military time spent? I'm trying to find the right word. Because participating obviously in the military was for many like a life-changing experience, right? And that needs to be reflected. I'll share a story in a little bit about some of my ancestors who participated in the United States Civil War. And one of the comments that their sisters made after they died, and we have this in letters back and forth, was that after the boys came home for the war, there were 3 brothers who participated in the Civil War and fought for the Union. And all three of them were actually held at Andersonville, which was a prisoner of war camp for the Confederate Army. When they came back, they were changed men. And they essentially describe their behaviors and their personality changes, and essentially said, without knowing what they were saying, that they were suffering from PTSD. But of course, that didn't exist yet, right? We didn't know that language yet, and so they were totally different people when they came back. And so one of my goals is to actually document those stories and what they would have seen in battle, what they would have participated in, what they would have been exposed to, so that is kind of preserved and understood better. Anyway, question of the week. Were any of your ancestors, or I'm sorry, have you written the story of your military ancestors? And we will get to the question and more discussion on military documentation in a few minutes. But first, let's go through the new records this week. So first up is always a good one to be able to share: updates to the 1939 register. Yes. We love the 1939 register. It's absolutely a brilliant record set. And it is, of course, handled very well and exclusively on Findmypast, in the sense that we have the most current and updated version. And we're always really excited to do updates. So we have just over 95,000 new additions to the 1939 register. So if you haven't looked at 1939 for a few weeks, or maybe even a couple months, go back and take another look. You may find that some of your records have been opened up. The second collection today, the other two collections are very military, or are military record sets. So one of the first things that we've done is, if you're familiar with the Coldstream Guards collection, we've actually created a browse version of that collection. So there's 14,929 images, just shy of 15,000 images on the Coldstream Guards. And with the browse version, what that means is that there's no name search attached to that version of the collection. But that's a good thing in some ways, right? It allows you to flip through the images back and forth like you're reading a microfilm almost, except from the comfort of your home. It allows you to look for friends, associates, and neighbors, right? Our fan research that's really so important. It's really a good tool for those of us who are, especially on military records, right? Because you're looking for people that they served with, activities of their unit, etc. And being able to go kind of image by image is a really important component of that research process. So really excited about the Coldstream Guards now as a browse collection. So take a look at that. And then lastly, brand new to the site and a really exciting addition that we're launching, kind of part one of, is the Royal Engineers tracer cards. Now, the collection will eventually span 1900 to 1945. What we've published today is phase one, which focuses on World War II. So the materials that we've published really are just for the years of the Second World War. But again, this is the first phase. So keep in mind, there's more to come. There's just over 92,000 records. And these tracer cards, I've never heard of these before. So I had to kind of get the rundown and the mini education from Paul Nixon, our military expert. These are what they're called. They're called tracer cards. And they mostly cover, in this instance, this phase, men with surnames that start from A to H. So the first half of the alphabet. And they are those who served with the Royal Engineers during the Second World War. The complete collection, again, will eventually be published over time. So it's essentially a summary of their service. So tracer card, right, tracing them through their service record. It usually details when a man joined the Royal Engineers and then follows his career within the regiment. So it traces their service history in a kind of a summary or abbreviated form, and it's kind of a quick guide to his service. Usually includes dates of birth or age on the enlistment on some cards, and then, of course, you can then move to get a full service record from the Minister of Defense that you request directly from them. But this tracer card is a great way to kind of get the bullet points, right? The Cliff Notes version of his military service, so that you know how to dig into that research a little bit better. And these are, it is an image collection, so you get the actual image of the card itself. And so they're really fantastic resources, especially if you're just getting started in that military research, it gives you a really good chance to see kind of the full summary of his service in kind of a snippet form, and then you can dig in further to the records. So it's a really great resource. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about besides records is our new feature this week. And I hope that you guys are excited. We are super excited. And I am going to share this with you through a quick video, actually, that the lovely Ellie made for us. She's extremely talented, for those of you who don't know, and she does most of our video work behind the scenes. So we are really, really pleased to introduce a new search tool for the UK Census records. So you can now search all of the UK Census records by address. And this allows so much opportunity for research, right? So if you wanted to look at all the people who are living on a particular street, or if you're not exactly sure which house they were in, you can search by address and find them in that detail. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I'm really excited about it. We're going to play the video, but feel free to leave your comments and questions in the chat as you watch this. But Ellie's going to...
If you're into house history, or you'd like an easier way to look up an address in census records, stay tuned. Here at Findmypast, we've released a census address tool. This feature is easy to find. Simply click Search in the top navigation bar and click Census Address. Here's how to use it. You can easily search for one street across all British censuses, or you can choose a particular year. Enter in your street name, bearing in mind any spelling variations. Next, add your location and the radius filter. Be sure to explore the handy search tips we've added so you can get the most out of your search. Let's see it in practice. We're searching for a street across all census records. Here we find the street and the census we want, and we click the navy button to explore the addresses. The house numbers are listed here on the left. But remember, not every house had a number. Choose a household to explore to see who lived there. You can quickly amend your search from the results page. And don't forget, check the original image for more details. Search the records today. Where will your past take you?
Amazing, right? Okay, I hope you guys are excited about this as we are. We're really, really thrilled about the census search and being able to be able to find by address and by street. Really, really great new tool. We're really excited about it, especially with the upcoming launch of the 1921 census. It's just going to be amazing. So hope you guys are excited as we are. Let's see. Have you tried it yet? I see a couple people have. Looks like, Jane tried it this morning. Address search was great. That's cool. Fantastic. A lot of wows and a useful feature. So that's good. Natalie asked, are there any handouts? No, Natalie, we don't really do handouts on Findmypast Fridays. It's pretty casual. But this session is recorded, as are all of our sessions. So you can go back into our Facebook page and watch this at any time that you want, or on our YouTube channel. They're always available for you. And if you need something specific, feel free to reach out. You can always reach us at support@findmypast.com. And if it's a really specific question, it will be directed to one of our in-house experts, and we'll do everything we can to help you. Let's see. Oh, Heather says just gets better and better. Thank you, Heather. That's very nice of you. So the address search today is for UK census records specifically. And hopefully it will expand further beyond that. But I don't know. We'll see what happens in the future, right? Our tech guys work really hard on this kind of improvement. And it's been really exciting to see the updates to the site in the last few months. So really, really excited. Oh, Victoria, late to the party because she's just had her jab. Congratulations, Victoria. That's really good news. I have my second one coming up soon, next week, I think. So that's very exciting too. All right, good. I hope everybody is looking forward to getting their vaccines. It's important. Okay, today we're going to talk about writing our military history. So let's go back to the question of the week. Have you written the story of your military ancestors? I know that there were some responses to that, so let's see what we can pull up here. So Roxanne said, I haven't written any of my ancestors' military stories. However, my great-grandfather wrote a book about his time in the Army Air Corps with a focus on his time in the Korean airlift. That's interesting. It's great actually that you have that, Roxanne. There are so many people, so many veterans who don't talk about their time in the service, don't want to share that experience because it can be traumatic, right? So it's I don't know. I haven't heard of very many people who the veteran themselves has actually written out that that experience, but that's really great that you have that, Roxanne. Let's see what else we've got. Patricia says, my father was in World War II and served in the Middle East. He was a driver and he left a box which contained maps of routes he was given across the deserts, instructions from his senior officer, which was really fascinating. I put them all together as a history of his time there. That's incredible, actually, to have that. What a fantastic resource. I mean, the actual routes that he took, like that's really, really cool, Patricia. What a fabulous family heirloom you have. So Heather says she has researched her ancestors' military history and continue to do so, but have not written them up yet. So hopefully today's discussion is helpful for you, Heather. I will admit this is not something that I have done extensively yet either. It's definitely on the ever-growing list of things to do, but there were a lot of things this week that got me thinking about it. Right. Of course, we released a bunch of new military records, so that always kind of puts that topic at the top of mind. But also, it was Anzac Day in Australia, New Zealand, coming up this weekend. And so learning about that and exploring that history has broadened my perspective a bit. And I also got a very interesting comment from my own dad, who's a veteran of the United States Navy. He served 18 years as a photographer. And a lot of his work, especially in the latter years of his service, was considered part of military information, right? Like, I'm not finding the right words. It was all confidential, right? It was like military secret stuff. So he sent me an email, and because I've started my vaccine process, I'm planning to go see my dad, which I'm really excited about for the first time in over a year. And he says, I can't wait to see you because I have 4 boxes of photographs, mostly from my Navy years, that are sitting here waiting for you. And I just went, oh, yes, like that is exciting. So we're going to have a great time going through his boxes of photographs. I'm really looking forward to it. So that kind of brought all this to the forefront for me this week. So it's good to see some of you sharing your stories as well. Jane said she's in the middle of transcribing letters exchanged between her father and his mother while he was a POW during World War II. Oh my gosh, that has to be a kind of heartbreaking, but also amazing at the same time. Like, what an experience. Plan is to create a book with all the documents I can find for future generations of the family. Good for you, Jane. That's a really significant project and an important one. So that's fantastic. Amanda left a nice long comment. My 2 grandfathers served in World War II. 3 of my great-grandfathers served in World War I. And a great-great-grandfather served in World War I. My 3 times great-grandfather served in the Crimean War in the 1850s and all survived. That's pretty incredible. 2 great-uncles were sadly killed in World War I and documented their time in the war. So you've done a lot of work, Amanda. It sounds like that's an incredible history. You know, it's interesting to me. This has been something that I've talked about in my own family for a number of years now. We've discovered that we've been in the United States. My paternal side has been in the United States much longer than we ever anticipated, we ever thought. And what we realize is our family has in some way participated in every conflict the American forces, in whatever version existed at the time, since prior to the Revolutionary War, since the French-Canadian War or the 7 Years' War, depending on where you're located. And that's a long line of military history in my family that I never pieced together. And, you know, my dad is fond of saying, and I talk about my dad a lot, but he and I talk genealogy a lot. So my dad is fond of saying, you know, he never considered himself being from a military family, but in fact, we are very, right? So it's really interesting. So this is all something that I need to kind of listen to my own advice here and actually make sure that I do this. Okay. So let's get into, thank you all for contributing your answers to the question of the week. Oh, Claire did one too. Let's take a look at Claire's. I didn't know I had anyone in the services until I started family history. I think my grandparents were too young for the two world wars, so no one served with the Australian forces. I have found ancestors from Britain and Ireland who did serve, and I'm not too aware of terminology and ranks and war in general. That is a real learning curve. However, I do want to learn more and have some records that are downloaded. Sometimes hard to find the information. Had some with the Navy, at least 2 with the RAF, and at least 1 with the Army, but died. Yeah, Claire, I think you really hit the nail on the head. It is difficult if you're not familiar to learn the terminology and to understand the system of military, right? And organizing a military. That's a lot. It is a lot to take in. I remember a couple years ago, I was learning about the British Army during World War I, and I really had to spend some significant amount of time learning about the structure because it's different than what I'm used to. And that kind of takes us into our discussion today about writing our family history specifically around military experience. And I think one of the things that is really important that we do first and foremost is to talk to any living veterans that we have access to. They can help put it into regular terms, right? They can help you, figure out what does it really mean to be a sergeant or a corporal during this time frame? Like, what did that really look like? What was that job like? But it also gives us the opportunity to research the unit itself, the organization of the branch of service, whether it's the Army or the Navy or the Marines or what have you. So it's important that you kind of do both side by side, right? Because as you're interviewing people, one of the things that you want to try and do is kind of kindle some memories. Photographs are a great way to do that, newspaper clippings, but also using the terminology that they would have used when they were in the service is also helpful, especially if you're interviewing someone who maybe is in their upper senior years, right? And maybe might have memory issues or communication issues. So using the terminology that triggers a memory might be useful as well. So it's a good idea to interview those people, but also to kind of research the unit or the history of the unit or the military branch as side by side, right? So you're doing those things and educating yourself simultaneously. I'm wondering if anybody out there has had a chance to interview one of their veteran ancestors, or maybe someone who's not related but had similar experiences. Share your stories as well. We'd love to hear from you in the chat. There is always obviously the chance that they won't want to talk about their military experience. Maybe it was traumatic. Maybe it's something they don't want to discuss, but maybe they'll write about it. So if they're not willing to talk to someone, suggest perhaps putting a piece of paper in front of them and a pen or a computer, depending on what they're comfortable with, and actually asking them to write down what they remember. Maybe it's names of people they served with, or maybe it's, list the names of the bases you were stationed at, or the countries you were sent to, or the job that you did, right? Whatever that was. I know a lot about my dad's service in the Navy because he happily talks about his Navy years. But I don't really know a lot about the actual details of day-to-day life. He's kind of just starting to get into that with me. So things like, he served on board aircraft carriers a lot in his first few years. So what was it like to live on that aircraft carrier? And he told me a story recently where, there would be times when you didn't see sunlight for a couple of weeks because they were doing something and they were in active kind of configuration and motion. And so the photo lab obviously was down in the depths of the boat. And so he would go for a couple of weeks without seeing any daylight and it's like kind of like a submarine experience a little bit. John had a great suggestion here. I want to pop this in. This is a fantastic point, John. Thank you so much for making this because it's so true. I've seen this happen with my own eyes. Veterans will often open up to their grandchildren. One of the best ways for me to get stories out of my dad is to sit him down with his grandson, who is my nephew. So I think he's 8 or 9, and he's very interested in military things. And so it's great to see grandpa and grandson together because he tells his stories in a different way. He tells his stories, honestly, a little bit easier even for me to understand, right? Because he puts it in language that an 8-year-old can understand. And I'm like, yeah, I don't have any military experience. I don't know what that is either, right? So a really, really great suggestion, John. Thank you for that. Another comment from Beth. Let's share some of your experiences too. I grew up knowing that my grandpa was a Japanese POW. He didn't openly talk about it, but I was fully aware from a young age. My mom has some of his possessions from his time and his experience as a POW. That's got to be, I mean, that's hard, right? That's really, really difficult stuff to get into. Even if you're very close with that ancestor or that family member, right? It's not an easy thing to talk about at all. So keep in mind when you're trying to do these family interviews that it may be really, really emotional. It might be really challenging for these individuals. All right, I want to make sure I don't miss any of these great comments. So let's see. Andrew says, have written down what I can about my great-great-grandfathers. You're born at Castleknock on the outskirts of Dublin. I only have him on 2 censuses, but both times the place is given. The 1851 at Chatham was gold dust. His regiment sailed to India the following week. Wow. Let me trace him through the pay books at Kew. He served through the Indian Mutiny, then was sent to Canton. I wonder if he came back with a taste for spicy food. Maybe, right? Maybe. A friend of mine, actually, her husband serves, I believe for the Navy actually. And they lived in Japan for a while, and she talks all the time about how she misses the Japanese, culinary world. So yeah, totally possible, right? Totally possible. Okay. Audrey, let's see what Audrey has to say today. Thank you for being with us, Audrey. My grandfather was a POW in Italy and then Germany in the Second World War, which I already knew, but also found his name in the Royal Artillery attestations on FMP, discovered that he had served for 2 years in the territorials in the early 1920s and lied about his age when he joined. How many times have we heard that? So many people did that, right? Okay. So we've talked a little bit about doing interviews. I think that's an important step to the process of understanding your military history. But don't leave out the survivors of that service, right? So even if the veteran has gone from the earth, has died, you can still potentially talk to a spouse or a widow. You could talk to children of that veteran, especially if they were alive during his time of service, and get their perspective, right? What was it like when he left home, or she? What was it like to have someone in active duty? How often did you see them? When they came back, what were they like? But also, what kind of care packages did you send as a family to those individuals? How did you follow the news of the events during that conflict, right? We're going to kind of assume that most of our military ancestors served during some kind of active conflict. How did you get information about them, right? How often did you get letters from that person, or send letters? So getting that perspective of what it was like at home is also important. So I would just recommend, don't leave out the spouses, the widows, the children, cousins, siblings, anybody that you can get a hold of that would have memories of that experience. I do talk about my dad a lot, I guess. I'm going to say that again. I'm in the process of thinking about how to approach his sister, who is 7 or 8 years younger than my dad, and still, would definitely have memories of what it was like to be a teenager in the house after her big brother had left. And it's interesting, actually, that she and I actually have very similar experience. My own brother joined the U.S. Army Reserves when I was just starting to get into my teenage years. He's 7, 8 years older than me. And I remember very clearly what it was like the morning he left for boot camp. And we were very close. And I really looked up to my brother, still do. And it was really, really hard for me to go through that experience. So don't leave out those family members. Don't leave out the survivors of that experience, the neighbors, right? So let's talk about, if you can't find a family member to talk to, right? Who do you go to then? So look at the history of the unit. Think about people that they served with, or other survivors of that experience. One of the things that I read online would be to actually ask, look at reunion events for that particular unit and get permission first, ask if it's okay, but see if you can join those reunion events, and actually go and talk to surviving members of that particular unit or that particular experience. So just there's so many different ways to approach the interview process. We don't necessarily have to limit ourselves to just the veteran themselves, right? Let's think about all the other people that were involved in that experience. Okay, but then what else is there to learn from writing specifically about your military ancestor? We really want to think about what their experience was kind of day to day. So start with enlistment. Where did they train? How long were they where? How long were they there? Did they train in a specialty area? For example, I know quite a bit about my dad's boot camp experience and then his training courses after that. Because he was a photographer, he likes to talk about that experience. That was where he was exposed to photography, and he ended up being a professional photographer for the rest of his career once he left the Navy. So he really draws on that Navy experience as the foundation of his entire life's work, right? So can you find documentation or interview that person about the enrollment process, about enlistment? What was that like? Was it intimidating, the training experience, right? Is it like Hollywood portrays, where they're, so awful and mean in boot camp? Was there a sense of urgency around the recruitment process, or the enlistment process, right? So I think back to conflicts like World War II or Vietnam or Korea. Was there any sense of real urgency? I have to enlist to serve my country, to protect the world. And I would say for World War I, World War II, that's very much true, right? That would have been the case for, I think, a large number of people. And certainly other more personal conflicts, right? The U.S. Civil War. There's people in my family who lied about their age to enlist. They were too young, but they really wanted to serve in that particular engagement. So think about that early stage of their military experience, right? And again, feel free to share in the comments if you've done that process, if you've been through that process already, and have an experience or something, a suggestion for the group, people that can look to. So when you can't talk to the veteran, and maybe you have talked to the veteran and you still need to fill in those details, then we start to think about researching the actual unit itself, right? We want to think about what battles they fought in, what engagements they were in. And there's a number of ways to do that, right? We want to connect with anybody who's still alive, who served with them or commanded them or served alongside them, anything like that. And really just research the unit as you would kind of research your favorite ancestor, right? Like think about that unit as a really key component to your family history. So some of the suggestions that I came up with, and I would love to hear others from the community. I look for rare book dealers or used book sales that might have something specific to that unit that's already been written. Certainly university libraries, archives, manuscript collections that are near military bases. And that may be more specific to the US, I'm not sure. But certainly archive collections hold a number of materials, especially if they're nearby some major unit, military base. There's one south of me in Colorado Springs there's a base for the Air Force, and there is a university very close, and they do have a pretty significant collection of Air Force history at that university. So you want to also look for unit association newsletters. Sometimes a subscription is required for that particular type of newsletter or magazine or journal, sometimes not. And again, that's your chance to kind of learn about any upcoming reunions or events to honor the individuals who served in that unit. So think about that, kind of scour the internet for those old-fashioned listservs and email chains, and Reddit groups might be a good option. We also want to look, of course, at combat reports, local histories that were published near the battlefields. Because they would certainly include significant battles that are nearby. Official unit histories, of course, anything that's going to give a description or reference to that particular unit. Now, there's a blog on the Find My Past blog that was written by one of the friends of Find My Past, Therese, that was published just recently. Ellie's going to share the link in the comments, and she talks about I think it's 11 ways to go beyond military records for your Anzac military ancestors, for your Anzac ancestors. So take a look at some of her suggestions. I know she includes a rather lengthy official history of Australian, New Zealand military, and it's multiple volumes, but it's all digitized. It's available online. There's links in the blog post. And it's an extensive way to dive into that historical time and place and really figure out what was happening with particular units, particular branches of the service, et cetera. And so that's a really great example of one of the ways in which we can dig into the military specific history for the Australia, New Zealand region, at least. Okay, let me go pause there, look back at the comments, and see what you guys are talking about. Oh, this one looks interesting. From William, thank you. A lot of the big university libraries and other key libraries have donated materials found. My great uncle and his wife mentioned in a couple of diaries at the Baldwin Library in Oxford. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. I'm sure someone will correct. Oh, Ellie said I did. Thank you, Ellie. Including info suggesting they were part of a group who passed info back to the Allies about the Japanese when in Hong Kong in World War II. That's really interesting. So there you go. Living proof that researching at universities and libraries is important work. We cannot overlook those resources. This one from Sean. My great uncle was a gold miner in New Guinea when the Japanese invaded. He joined the Volunteer Rifles, served for 2 years. There's very little written about the war there. Well, that's interesting. I wonder if you can change that, right? Now's your chance to write something yourself. No small task, I know. But yeah, definitely worth digging into, right? I wonder if maybe academic sources, something like JSTOR, which is a wonderful website for academic articles, might be of use. So if you haven't looked there, possibly look it up. I believe it's jstore.org is the URL, but I'm sure someone will pop it into the chat. Let's see what else. Here's Amanda. She's got a great comment about interviewing, it looks like. Very lucky I was able to interview my maternal grandfather about his World War II experiences. He was a gunner in the Royal Marines Artillery. He helped to safely guide a ship through sea mines to Yugoslavia. He was operating the radio, documented the experience and sketches. Wow, he gave them to her mom, and her feels so incredibly lucky to have it. Definitely. That is a treasure, Amanda, for sure. Thank you for sharing that story with us. What an incredible piece of family history to have. Let's see. Yep, so a couple of other suggestions it looks like in the chat. It looks like quite a discussion is happening over there, so that's really good to see. Oh, Matthew says perfect pronunciation. Thank you, Matthew. Appreciate that. And JSTOR is fantastic. Yes, it is. I genuinely would spend days and days on JSTOR just reading through the content. If you haven't yet used JSTOR, stop everything you're doing right now. Keep this tab open, of course, because you want to hear the rest of the discussion. But open up JSTOR and start exploring because it's absolutely amazing what you can learn. I miss having full access to it for sure. Oh, that was Ellie who said that. Yes. Yeah, but you can get a personal account, you can pay for a subscription, or you can access your university or library if you have something close to you. So look at those options because it's really, really worth it. Yeah. Okay. Back to the topic. I could talk about JSTOR for a while. Denise says, anyone know whether information about undercover actions around D-Day is available, or would it be held secret until 100 years are up? Just hints and a suspicion about my father-in-law service. I don't know exactly, but I'm sure other people can leave some suggestions. I would assume that it's protected in the 100-year privacy rule. If Audrey is still live with us watching, maybe she has some input for you, Denise. So if you know anything about particular records for D-Day, please leave a comment for Denise and help her out. Let's see. We've got another good one from Angel. I hope, I'm not sure. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. My uncle, as far as I know, was in Italy during the war and was injured when his Jeep went over a ridge. I have no other details other than his name, date of birth, and a photograph. How would I find out more? Well, exploring the military records collection on Findmypast is certainly a great place to start. depending on which unit he was in. We can certainly research the particular activities of that unit, just like we've been talking about. So let's get back into a little bit more of those suggestions, because I think one of the benefits, of course, of writing your research, and it's a habit that we should all build, no matter what topic we're working on, is to write as you go, right? Write as you research. So when you find a record on Findmypast or in a manuscript collection, right, put it into your system, store it wherever you store it, but then take a few minutes to pull up whatever writing software you use, whether it's a Word or a journal on your desk or a writing software, whatever you have, and actually review and analyze that document. Take the time to say, I learned this. I know that this is a fact now because it's, or I can make an assumption about this part of my ancestor's life based on what I've learned from this document. It's so, so important that we write as we research. And one of the reasons it's important is because you start to see gaps and holes in that research. So if you say, for just this morning, actually, I was looking at, as an example for this session, I was looking at one of my U.S. Civil War ancestors and thinking, okay, what do I actually know about his time in the service? I know he served. I know his brother served. I know what unit he was in. And I have material, I have research findings that say what they experienced, what battles they were in, that kind of thing, that kind of activity. But I haven't taken the time to actually write it out yet. This is something I need to do. And even as I just started to get started on this, I went, I'm missing some pieces here. I'm missing some really important elements. I need to go back to his pension file. I need to go back to these records that I already have in my collection and say, what else did I miss? What can I learn? One of the things that I got from one of those pension files that was so valuable to me putting together pieces of my family tree was a letter from his mother. His mother, I apologize, it was his sister. Sister wrote a letter to the pension board in the United States. And it said in the letter, I am a daughter of a soldier, a wife of a soldier, a sister to soldiers, a mother of soldiers, a grandmother of soldiers. And I just went, there's so much family history in that one sentence that it was incredibly powerful, right? Because it told me, oh, her dad really did serve. I think he did, but she is sitting here claiming I'm the daughter of a soldier. So he must have seen something at some time, right? He must have participated in some way somewhere. And I'm pretty sure it was the British Army, actually. So it's important that we take the time to really break apart the records that we have. And a really good way to do that is to write out our research findings as we make those discoveries and as we get the access to that record. So take the time to write this out because it really will help you see those gaps. Another way to supplement that writing and some of that research findings is to use kind of supporting documents, right? You want to tell the story visually if you can. So photographs, maps, maybe find speeches from military leaders or politicians from the area that have been transcribed or available online somewhere that might give you some overview or some understanding of that situation. Old recruiting posters can certainly add a lot of color and visual impact to your story. You can often find those on National Archive and National Library sites. For example, in the United States, the Library of Congress has a pretty massive collection of recruiting posters. And then the other one, of course, is battle maps, right? And there's a number of sites for that. There's some really great materials from national libraries, national archives, but there's also websites out there, and I didn't grab any of the URLs ahead of time. I should have, I apologize, but there are websites that map kind of all the battlefields of World War I and all the major sites during the Revolutionary War, or Lafayette's time in America during the Revolutionary period and his journeys across the United States as it became. That really allow you to see and put into perspective where your ancestor was, what he was, the kind of environment he was fighting in, or her, etc. There's also photograph collections, of course, that we can utilize. The Findmypast photo collection is a great way to start. There are a number of military affiliated photographs in that material. There's also a couple really unique ones. So, for example, there is a photo collection from the Historical Society of Pennsylvania that is not actually a military record set, technically. And I'm going to ask Ellie to share the link to this one in the chat so you guys can see it. What it is, it's actually a set of photographs that were sent from the U.S. Army to the major newspapers in the state of Pennsylvania during World War II. So it's got all the kind of your typical military headshots, but it also has things like when someone was awarded a medal, it has maybe a picture of him standing next to his plane and why he is newsworthy, right? The Army was encouraging the newspapers to actually write about their local soldiers and sailors and airmen and their experiences during the war. And this was the way to do it. So it's actually the casualty card collection, because they did use those images when someone was killed or died. But there's also a lot of, he was recognized for this, or they were promoted. There's also some civilian images in that collection, because they were just discussing everything that had to do with the war in the state of Pennsylvania and its kind of surrounding area. That was newsworthy, right? It was essentially just it was like their PR team trying to get the newspapers in the area to talk about their local servicemen. So it's a really powerful collection. So you might find materials like that from all over the country, whether it's the United States or Canada or Australia, New Zealand, or the UK. There was a lot of PR activity for the wars, and certainly during World War II, especially in Vietnam, et cetera. But as we get into a more kind of advanced technological era, those types of records become more readily available. So that's a really, really good type of resource to look for, is something that is actually more of a marketing PR angle than an actual like military service record. Certainly want to take a look at documentaries that are available about the unit. And it's an easy way to kind of consume a lot of information in a short amount of time. Look for international bases, military installations. Many countries have been using the same locations for a long time. So look at the British Army facilities kind of in other areas of the world and see what you can learn there. There's obviously clues to be found in biographies of significant military leaders from whatever conflict they were involved in. And then, of course, there's medals and ribbons and moments of recognition, right? Those can all be researched, and images can be found online to explain. So maybe you have a collection of medals and you don't know what they mean. There are resources out there for us to learn about why they earned that medal, what they did. So lots of great ideas, lots of great suggestions. I'm going to go back to the comments for a couple minutes just to see what you guys are talking about. Audrey says, I know much more about the home front in the Second World War than the military side. Fair enough. But there should be some useful records about D-Day and lots of other campaigns in the unit war diaries and higher level strategic planning level. Lots of information on how to research them in the British Army operations in the Second World War guide. Nothing online, unfortunately, but look at that link that she has shared. And thank you, Audrey, very much for contributing this comment and answering the question about D-Day records. And we appreciate you very much. And so if you have questions about how to research kind of that higher level World War II side of things, go to that link on the National Archives site in the UK, help and read through their research guide through the Second World War. And I read their research guides a lot. I was actually just reading one yesterday extensively. They are incredibly helpful, and they obviously put a lot of time into creating those guides. So please make sure that you utilize those resources. They're outstanding. And we will also mention and officially say happy birthday, Audrey, from all of us at Findmypast. We know it's your birthday and you thought you were going to get away with it, and you did not. We are so pleased to be a part of your community, and we hope that you just have a really, really outstanding day. So happy birthday, Audrey. Everybody say happy birthday to Audrey. Okay, let's see. Let's take a look at Andrew's comment. The oldest record I have on my mom's side is a petition for relief from 1678. It starts, I, a poor and indigent described person, and maimed and lamed in his majesty's service in the wars, a royalist soldier in the English Civil War. Andrew, that is cool. That is really, really neat. So this military history goes, as far back as people were writing stuff down, essentially. Military activity is one of the most heavily documented and heavily researched components of human history, just in total. So there are just a ton of resources out there for us, and that is such a cool find from 1678. Oh, good. Lots of people saying happy birthday to Audrey. Thank you all very much. That's fantastic. Okay, let's see. A good one from our friend in Ireland. I picked up an amazing book on battlefields and the tactics used by the different sides. One of those coffee table books I picked up in the Works, the UK bookshop. That's a really good suggestion, actually, the coffee table style book. I don't have any military ones on my shelf immediately behind me. I do have a couple others, but those books can actually be really, really useful and helpful, and summarizes a history of an event or an activity or a whatever, in a very concise and easy to read way, right? A lot of us, I myself included, I'm very guilty of this. I tend to get boiled down in like this really heavy academic, and it's interesting to read, but at the same time, maybe I don't really need to go that far into detail. Maybe I really just need a coffee table book to understand what I'm trying to get to, right? What my objective is. Okay. So one of the things that I have mentioned a couple times is the idea of using a good software. And I think that's really important. It's important for me. And the reason for that it's important to me is because I get easily distracted by things, right? Whether it's Facebook notifications or messages from my coworkers at work or whatever it is. There's a lot of information coming to us all at one time. And so I decided a couple of years ago to convert to a writing software to help my research time be more effective. And one of the reasons that it's helpful is because it has a particular mode just for writing without distractions. So I'm actually going to share my screen really quick and show you guys what I am talking about. So let me add this here. Okay. So this is a writing. Oh, that's my daughter. Hang on. Oops. Oops, let me pull that back up again. I hit the wrong button. Okay, so I get this back up. Apologies, I meant to hit this button. Okay, now I can share screen. Okay, all right. So this is a writing software. It's called Scrivener. And it's designed for authors, right? So it has a structure that allows you to really say like chapters, my outline from my book. It's really designed that way. And they have a lot of templates that you can follow, and it's really useful. But I use it as a place to collect my research. I'm going to drop this view because I'm not going to be able to do what I wanted to do, but I'll make it bigger. There we go. Okay. So the distraction free is what I really wanted to show you. If you go to one of their modes, it's called composition mode on this particular software, and it pulls up and it looks like this. So it literally just blacks out everything else in the background of my life. My screen goes black. I can just write. And you see, this is the individual I was talking about earlier, that I started looking at his Civil War service that I really haven't spent a lot of time writing. But as I am going through his records, his materials, I'm just looking at Scrivener. There's nothing else to bother me or to distract me. And I love this view. It makes the purchase of the software actually completely so valuable for me, right? I have just this one feature makes it that much worth the cost of the purchase. It's not expensive, but it made it worth it. So that's one of the ways in which I like to use the writing software. The other thing that I particularly like about it is all of my citations are right here in front of me over on the margin. So I know exactly what I'm looking at, where that information has come from. And then off to the side over here is kind of the outline of my book, right? And so each chapter, if you will, is really actually a profile of a person. So here's one that I've talked about a couple of times on this particular platform is my supposed silversmith out in Birmingham, England. He may or may not have been a silversmith now, I've learned with some additional research. That's another story. But you see what I'm saying in that it's a great tool because it's designed for writing, right? It really forces you to think about how you're writing out your family history. Now, there are other ways to do this, of course, and it's personal preference. You could just as easily use Word or a similar, Word document kind of software program. But in this case, I particularly prefer Scrivener just because it's designed for writing and it really allows me to focus my time and my energy. The question Linda asked, any idea if it's Mac friendly? It is actually. It's designed for Macs, and their Windows software is actually their like secondary version. But yes, absolutely designed for Macs. And there are versions that are available of other writing softwares, right? Scrivener is just one of the options. And it's a fabulous software. So if you're into writing a lot, and if you want to really get serious about writing out your family history, writing out your research, and making sure that you're writing as you go, looking at a writing software like this may be beneficial to you. Okay, so that's my that's my soapbox about writing software. Okay, we just have a couple more minutes. I want to just recap a little bit about writing our military family history. In this writing software or whatever system you prefer to use, there are a number of avenues that we can take to really thoroughly document the military participation of our ancestors. There is a number of ways that we can make this more successful for ourselves. So really think about high level, right? What was that experience like for that person from the day they joined all the way to the day they left the service, in whatever format that took? But really organize your thoughts, right? Create a little bit of a guide for yourself. What do you want to include in this summary, or not include, right? Who are you writing for? Are you writing for yourself? Are you writing for your family? Are you writing for a book? Are you writing for a blog? Are you writing for some other unknown audience? Are you trying to write a detailed history of the entire unit or just your one person? So think about your overall goals. And as you get into the research, you'll find that I think if you're anything like the average passionate genealogist, you'll find that it's really easy to just kind of go all in and get really, really mired in the details. And when that happens, and it happens to me all the time, right? It's helpful to take a step back and look at those initial goals, those notes that you made for yourself, and say, right, what I really want to achieve here is this. I'm trying to answer this question, or I'm trying to present this quick summary, or I really didn't want to go past 10,000 words on this part of his life or her life, and remind yourself of what your initial thought, what your initial goal was. Remember that writing is work, and it's enjoyable work. I enjoy it quite a bit, but you have to make time for it, and you really have to incorporate it as a habit into your research process. If you don't make it a habit, it's really easy to fall away from it, and then you suddenly find you have 6 months worth of research you have to catch up on the writing side of things, and then it just feels like an overwhelming task. So if you do it all the time, if you do it a little bit every day or every time you sit down to research, it becomes a lot more easier. Like, it becomes a lot easier, and it becomes just habitual and part of your natural process. It helps you think. It definitely helps me think. While writing, you may find that you have missed something in your research, or perhaps thought of a new angle to pursue. Give yourself time in your schedule to follow up on those and chase those ideas, right? Those little loose hanging strings that we all want to chase, whatever that bright, shiny object is for the day. Go ahead. It's okay. You have a goal. You have a research plan. You can always go back to that, but you're in control of your research. And if something comes along that you didn't know about before that is exciting to you and something you want to dig into more, then do it, right? Take advantage of that boost of energy that it gives you. Obviously, as I showed you, you can utilize a writing software that allows you to kind of minimize distractions. I really love the full screen mode, the composition mode that Scrivener has. So something like that you may find useful if you are easily distracted by other things. And remember, of course, to document your own experiences, right? We haven't talked yet about visiting war memorials or going to a graveyard and seeing, the insignia on the tombstone or the headstone. Or visiting a national cemetery, right? A couple years ago, I took my daughter to Arlington, and that was a really moving experience for all of us. And we need to make sure that we're taking time to really document those moments, record those as memories and as part of our family history experience, because it is now part of your family history, right? That you did that, or that you went on that trip, or you did that research, or you went to that cemetery. So take time to really think about how you are going to approach that research, how you're going to approach that writing process. All right, couple last comments from the group. John says, I love Scrivener and use it all the time. Check out Devon Think for documenting source material. It's a good tip, John. Thank you very much. Glad to always find another Scrivener fan out there. And if you want to get to know Scrivener before you decide to commit in any way, there are a lot of tutorials. There's even a genealogist in Canada who wrote a book about using Scrivener specifically for family history. I should have had it at the ready. I don't, but it's a wonderful little book to help guide you through that process. So let's see. Roxanne says Write or Die is a similar program. It's been a long time since she's used it, but I believe it's free. I haven't heard of that one, Roxanne, but I'll definitely check it out. I love the name, if nothing else. So thanks for that heads up. And there are free versions of this kind of software out there. So make use of what you want. Maybe you prefer to purchase records from the GRO instead of purchasing software. That's okay. Jimmy says, let's see, do you think it would be useful software for those of us who feel that writing is not one of our strengths? I actually do. I think that using Scrivener actually has made me better at citations because it's right there in front of my face and it reminds me to do it. I think it helps me organize my thoughts and my research process because of that kind of chapter format. And I don't use their templates all the time, but I do appreciate that they're there and available for me if I want them. There's a fiction and a nonfiction version. So yeah, I would say that it's a helpful tool. If nothing else, some of the YouTube videos and tutorials and things are maybe worth some of your time to see if it's something you think you could adapt to, but also would give you ideas and suggestions about how to improve your writing skills. And again, if you're not a natural writer, that's okay, because most of us are really writing for ourselves, our next generation, to preserve our research in some way. So it's your natural voice is totally okay, in my opinion. Yep. Quick shout out from Audrey to her colleagues at the National Archives Education Department. Their work is aimed at school students, but the content is available to anyone. A really good free way to get some background on lots of topics and aspects of UK history. And I would concur absolutely. I actually found myself on one of their sites yesterday. I was looking at manumission records and the anti-slavery movement across England. And I landed on one of their pages. I read it. It was fabulous. And then it linked me into a research guide that I mentioned earlier. So yes, great resource and a good shout out. Thank you, Audrey, for that. Okay, Ellie did say goodbye, so that's cool. Oh, this is a great comment from Matthew. And we're at the top of the hour, but this is great. Churches often have wall memorials, which can be useful. Yeah, absolutely. There are war memorials kind of everywhere, right? Small towns, especially in the US, in my experience, don't have the big war memorials like you see across England, Ireland, Australia, New Zealand, but there's almost always a plaque or a memorial stone or a bench or something somewhere. So be on the lookout for that, because there's information everywhere, right? Okay, so we are done with our hour. One last tip from Susan regarding Scrivener. There is a Facebook group, Scrivener for Genealogists. I am a member. It's a great Facebook group, great way to learn and access some of those materials and tools. And again, it doesn't have to be Scrivener, right? It can be anything you want. But for those of you in Australia and New Zealand, we hope that you have a peaceful commemoration of Anzac Day this weekend. We're thinking of you as part of our Findmypast family and honoring your ancestors and their sacrifices. So thank you to everybody in Australia and New Zealand who's participating and watching this video. We appreciate your efforts and your efforts to commemorate your military ancestors. We look forward to hearing your stories and exploration of our new records that were launched this week. From the British Army Royal Engineers and the Coldstream Guards. So make sure to check those out and start writing. We encourage you to write out your family history and dig deep into their military stories to see what you can discover. Lest we forget, of course. Absolutely. So thank you all very much for joining us. Join us back next week. We'll have the schedule up soon, and we always have wonderful topics and great guests. And I know there's always a lot to look forward to at Findmypast from Home, and we're really, really always pleased to have you with us. So thank you very much. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Oh, it's St. George's Day in England. Yes. I forgot. I'm sorry. I forgot. I was so concentrated on Anzac Day. I forgot about St. George's Day. All right. So have a great weekend, and we will see you all very soon. Thanks so much.